In the last couple of days, F1 has announced there will be a new track on the calendar in 2026. The Spanish Grand Prix will be moved from its current location at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya to a street circuit in the capital city of Madrid. As such, many fans have given their opinions on it, but most people are very negative towards this decision. The main gist of the arguments against the move say that F1 has too many street circuits on the calendar now, and they are taking up spaces that could be given to better, permanent circuits. This video is going to explain the history of F1's street circuit situation and try to come to a conclusion about whether we have too many street circuits of poor quality on the calendar and whether we should stop going in this direction. Street circuits have been on the F1 calendar since the first ever F1 season in 1950. In fact, during that year, 4 of the 7 races on the schedule were held on public roads. These tracks were Monaco, Spa, Bremgarten and Rem. There was then a slow trend downwards, however in 1955, the year of the Le Mans disaster, only 2 of the 7 races were held on public roads. The French, Spanish and Swiss Grand Prix were cancelled, then Pedralbes and Bremgarten would never return to F1 due to being deemed unsafe. However, the numbers picked up towards the end of the 1950s, with 1958 seeing Monaco, Spa and Rem being joined by the Boa Vista circuit in Portugal and the one-off Ain Diab circuit in Morocco. However, the loss of Boa Vista and the expansion of the calendar into double-digit numbers of events meant that F1 went from nearly half the circuits being on public roads in 1959 to less than a third like that in 1963. After a relative plateau during the mid to late 1960s, the loss of Spa and Sherrard plus another expansion from 10 or 11 races per season in 1971 to 15 by 1973 culminated in an era during the mid to late 70s where only 2 street circuits existed on the calendar. Monaco was partnered by the Spanish Grand Prix at Montjuic in 1973, but the following year in 1974 the Iberian race was held at Jarama. This meant that for the first time in F1 history, Monaco was the only street circuit on the calendar. However, Montjuic's ill-fated return in 1975, then the arrival of Long Beach, helped to break the tide going into the 80s. It was the arrival of the Ile Notre Dame circuit in Montreal that brought the concept of semi-permanent tracks to Formula 1. This, combined with FOM and Bernie Ecclestone's push into the American markets, doubled the percentage of street circuits in F1 between the years 1972 and 1982, and 1983 saw the highest percentage since 1969, with Monaco, Long Beach and Detroit partnering Montreal all packed into a tight 15-race schedule. The falls of Detroit and Dallas were supplemented by the additions of Adelaide and later Phoenix. However, when those 2 tracks fell off the calendar in the early to mid-1990s with only Albert Park coming in as an alternative, F1's involvement with street circuits massively decreased. It was mainly because they were focused on building massive permanent complexes in Asia, which led to a flat line in the amount of road races. The calendar also inflated from 15 or 16 races to 18 or 19, which meant that the inclusions of tracks like Monaco halved from 1991 to the year 2000 and stayed there until the late noughties. However, the inclusion of new facilities in Singapore and Valencia immediately doubled the impact of street circuits in F1 in 2008, then Valencia falling off was replenished by a new circuit in Sochi in 2014. The addition of Baku in 2016 meant that there was 3 fully attributed street circuits in Monaco, Azerbaijan and Singapore, along with 3 semi-permanent ones in Russia, Australia and Canada. This was a status quo until the pandemic hit. The 2020 season saw the lowest percentage of street circuits in F1 history. This was partly because Albert Park, Monaco, Baku, Montreal, Singapore and the now abandoned circuit in Hanoi were taken off the provisional calendar, with most being inconveniently planned for the first half of the season while the most serious lockdowns and other measures went on. 2021 saw Baku and Monaco return, with a new purpose-built street circuit built in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia joining them. Yes, you heard that right. Purpose-built street circuit. That's what the track is officially labelled as. With more inconsistencies than Prince Andrew's testimonies or Lance Stroll's form, I gave it half a point because it's trying to be a street circuit despite not seeing any public use. 2022 saw the return of Melbourne, Montreal and Singapore, while another semi-permanent circuit in Miami made its debut. Admittedly, only one freeway shares the pathway of the track, but it's better than Jeddah for authenticity. Sochi was removed from any future calendars due to Mad Vlad going boom 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 boom, I want you in my room, to a collection of villages, towns and cities in Ukraine. Then 2023 saw the addition of a fully fledged apart from the main street circuit in Las Vegas. This meant that last season's calendar had 4 100% legitimate street circuits in Baku, Monaco, Singapore and Vegas, along with 4 other semi-permanent tracks or part-time street tracks in Jeddah, Miami, Albert Park and Montreal. This put the percentage of these types of tracks on the calendar to its highest number since 1969, when there was literally half the amount of races on the calendar. With Madrid on the way, it could mean nearly a third of races are held on sectioned off public roads in the future. Does that mean there's too many street circuits? I mean, it's a fair point to raise. 95% of the arguments against Madrid stem from either A, believing street circuits are taking away race slots from the better permanent circuits, or B, street circuits are only there to make money and grow markets in big cities for F1. I'll address the first point first. Actually, that's obvious. All I've been seeing around the whole Madrid announcement is that people want other tracks instead. The most popular ones are usually, in no particular order, Sepang, Hockenheim, the Nürburgring GP circuit, Kyalami, India, Korea, Portimao, or basically any circuit removed from the calendar since 2010. To use those as examples, there are only 2 or 3 of those tracks that would work in modern F1 in my opinion, those being Sepang, Korea, maybe Hockenheim, and maybe the Nürburgring. People who say Kyalami needs to be in F1 because we need a race in Africa are not only daft but also hypocritical. At the very start of the World Drivers' Championship in 1950, they had to shoehorn the Indy 500 in as a round because all the other races were in Europe and they thus couldn't call it a World Championship. Admittedly, F1 has diversified since then, with North America bringing the large fan bases, South America aka Brazil nowadays bringing the great circuits and classic races, and Asia bringing oil money and China money. Africa has a least F1 pedigree because of the nature of our sport. Whether people like to admit it or not, it's the most elitist competition in the world, and the poorest continent will never be able to establish itself right now. 95% of African F1 drivers came along during the era where many local racers would just compete in their home Grand Prix and not do any more races. Every African F1 driver, bar Jody Scheckter and maybe Tony Maggs, were average at best and dog shit at worst. Scheckter was the last driver from the continent in 1980, and there are no African drivers of any note in any junior series that I know of, and I also disagree with the whole argument that Kyalami needs to be on the F1 calendar, because I think that's hypocritical. There are some people that say Monaco shouldn't be just automatically on the calendar because of where it is and the rich tax haven it is and all the glitz and glamour and everything, but with Kyalami it's apparently different standards, and we should let it in because of where it is. I'd be more open to seeing it in F1 if the track wouldn't be awful for racing. It has one decently long straight, but the rest of the track has no places you can even try a move because it's mostly too narrow. If modifications were made, I wouldn't mind it, but I'd rather see Sepang bring the Malaysian Grand Prix back. Only the FIA could build a circuit with the idea of producing more overtaking in 1999, then take it off the calendar in 2017, while entering the worst era for side-by-side racing. Typical FIA. People also overhype Portimao and Istanbul way too much. They saw one good race each because of weather, and now everyone thinks it's the best thing since Bill Cosby's sleeping pills' effectiveness. Portimao is great over one lap and in endurance racing, but produced a mediocre race in 2021, showing its true potential when rain doesn't affect it. Again, Istanbul was great in 2020 and in the V8 era, but now turn 8 is flat and the rest of the circuit is a lot faster and is not as exciting, and the 2021 race proved that. I don't think either of them are terrible tracks by any means, but they don't deserve to be on the F1 calendar. This video is just turning into me tearing up the schedule and making my own, so I'll quickly outline what I'd do with it if I was in charge. First thing is take out one of the Middle Eastern races because Abu Dhabi and Jeddah are shit, while Bahrain and Qatar are okay for racing but could be better. I'd definitely remove both Imola and Miami as well. They produce weak racing product. I love old school tracks, but the chicanes ruin Imola. If they removed them, it'd be so much better. People might hate me for saying that because, oh, Senna and Ratzenberger died, but they died because the safety wasn't there in that era. Whereas nowadays we have the Hans device which would have saved Ratzenberger, and the Halo which would have saved Senna. Also get rid of the Variante Alta, the modern version of it is so awkward and bad with those high curbs. I'd keep Barcelona and throw the Madrid project into the sun, then keep Monaco as well. Silverstone, Spa and Monza are staying no matter what, and Vegas might have to go if it's awful post-2023 once they get all the weather and stuff sorted out. I'm also up for alternating races, however not from year to year. If you have agreements like Silverstone and Brands Hatch had from the 60s to the mid-80s, let's say Hockenheim produces a great race one year, are you really going to say it's not worthy for the next year because the Nürburgring needs another go? I think 2 or 3 year intervals will be fair, so bring back the European Grand Prix, and maybe some other races can get on the calendar as well. I think preferably the calendar should shorten to 20 races a season, but I don't think going any lower than 22 is economically or logically viable, especially with the additions I'd want to make. If you want to see a video I made about what I'd do if I was in charge of F1 off the back of this, check the card in the top right of your screen. But I think I'm starting to go off track with all this calendar talk, and I think people came here to see what my thoughts were on the street circuit, so I think I'll end the video now. With that long rant over, it's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed me talking about street circuits and shit circuits. Huge thanks to everyone for the support on the channel in the last month or so. We're really growing the channel as well, and I'm looking likely to hit 1k soon, maybe in the next couple of months. Particular thanks goes to channel member Andy Lamberts, who pays real money to get his videos a day earlier than everyone else and gets a cool badge next to his name along with other perks. If you'd like to join him in supporting me, click the join button below this video and don't remember to like, comment and subscribe to see lots of delicious content from me in the future. Also, please follow my Instagram and Patreon with links in the description, but I'll stop being a beg now and let you get on with your day. I'm Nedzo, and I'll see you all later. Bye!